Let's jump right in. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to empower you, the frontline defenders of children's health, to build an impenetrable shield against E. coli in your childcare facility. Look, if you work with young kids, you already know that keeping them safe is your absolute #1 priority. So today, we are going to equip you with the exact knowledge you need to neutralize one of the most persistent, microscopic threats out there. Right off the bat, we need to acknowledge something about E. coli. While a lot of these bacteria are just harmless little gut dwellers, the harmful strains pose a really severe invisible threat. Because E. coli naturally lives in the guts of people and animals, the infection is primarily spread through feces. And here is exactly why you, as a childcare provider, need to be on high alert. Babies and young children are at a hugely elevated risk because their immune systems are still developing. In fact, there have been documented E. coli outbreaks specifically among children in childcare settings. Here's our game plan for today's explainer. We'll be covering 1. Understanding the bacterial threat. 2. How the infection spreads. 3. Managing a sick child. 4. Safe cleanup procedures. And finally 5. Everyday prevention strategies. Starting off with Section 1, Understanding the bacterial threat and the high stakes of childcare health. The sheer severity of these symptoms is honestly alarming. While a child might experience intense tummy cramps or diarrhea, which can actually be bloody, by the way, the absolute most terrifying risk, especially for the little ones in your care, is kidney failure. This highlights exactly why your role in preventing this infection is so absolutely critical. And here is a surprising, kind of scary fact. Some people who carry harmful E. coli in their gut don't actually get sick at all. They act as these invisible asymptomatic carriers, meaning they show no symptoms but can still pass this dangerous bacteria right on to others. Moving on to Section 2, How the infection spreads, where we're tracking those invisible pathways. E. coli is a total opportunist. Because it lives in the gut, it basically hitches a ride into your facility through 4 invisible pathways: direct contact with another person, touching animals or their enclosures, drinking contaminated water, or eating tainted food. Being hypervigilant in these 4 specific areas is your absolute first line of defense against an outbreak. That brings us to Section 3, Managing a sick child, focusing on your immediate crisis reaction. Okay, if you remember just one number today, make it this: 48. The 48-hour rule is an authoritative, totally non-negotiable standard. Any staff member, child, or childminder who has diarrhea or vomiting must strictly keep away from the facility for 48 hours. And let me be super clear about this. It is not 48 hours from when they first got sick. It's 48 hours after their very last symptom. Managers really need to have this explicitly written into their illness policy, and parents have to be told upfront to make alternative arrangements. But what do you actually do in the heat of the moment if a child vomits or has diarrhea right there in your facility? Well, first things first, contact their parents to take them home as soon as possible. While you're waiting for the parents to show up, you've got to isolate the child. Let them rest somewhere entirely away from the other kids. You also need to lock down that space by keeping everyone away from the soiled area until it's been properly cleaned and disinfected. Also, if you ever notice that 2 or more children are displaying these symptoms at the same time, you must contact your local Department of Public Health immediately. They will step in to give you the exact advice and support you need to prevent any more cases. Next up is Section 4, Safe Cleanup Procedures, where we talk about eradicating the threat safely. All right, when a mess happens, you're going to want to grab your pre-made cleanup kit. First, protect yourself with a disposable apron and gloves, get the child's soiled clothes off, and clean up their hands and face. Next, you tackle the environment. Use paper towels to physically pick up the mess from the surfaces, then clean the area thoroughly with a general purpose to charge it. Now, only after that should you apply a chlorine-based disinfectant to the area and then dry it off with fresh paper towels. Finally, dispose of all your used gear and paper towels super hygienically and give your own hands a really thorough wash. You know, this is a pretty common point of confusion. What's the actual difference between that detergent step and the disinfectant step? Why do we even need both? Well, just remember this. Detergents clean dirt, but disinfectants kill germs. You absolutely must first use the detergent to strip away the physical, visible dirt before you apply that chlorine-based disinfectant to actually kill the invisible E. coli bacteria. If you skipped either step, you're leaving the children vulnerable. We've also got to talk about soiled laundry. If clothes get soiled, your first instinct might be to just rinse them out in the sink. Please do not do this. Rinsing soiled laundry in a sink can splash and spread E. coli literally everywhere. Instead, flush any solids directly down the toilet, then toss the laundry straight into the washing machine and wash it at the absolute highest temperature the fabric allows, making sure to wash your hands right after. Now, if your facility can't wash clothes on site, that's okay. Just flush the solids, put the clothes in a sealed, waterproof bag, and clearly explain to the parents the safest way to handle it at home. Finally, Section 5, Everyday Prevention Strategies, Building Your Daily Shield. I honestly cannot emphasize this enough. Washing hands is the single most important way you can stop the spread of E. coli in its tracks. It has to happen after using the toilet, after changing nappies, and of course before eating or preparing food. And for the little ones who might find it tough to wash properly, you have to jump in and help them. Teaching the kids a fun, catchy nursery rhyme like, wash, wash, wash your hands, thumbs and fingers too, rub-a-dub, that's the thing to do, is a brilliant way to ensure they're actually scrubbing their hands long enough to wash the germs away. But listen, the technique matters just as much as the time. Have you ever seen one of those shared hand washing bowls? Yeah, never use those. Washing hands in the exact same stagnant bowl of water is just going to spread germs straight from one child to the next. Instead, you need the flow of running water. Wet the hands under warm water, lather up with some liquid soap, rub them vigorously, and then let that clean, running tap water physically wash those flush germs right down the drain. Finish up by drying off with fresh paper towels. And a quick reminder, even babies need to have their hands washed just as often as the older children. Moving from the bathroom to the kitchen, beyond impeccable hand hygiene, we have to make sure your water supply is safe. Harmful E. coli can absolutely lurk in untreated water. If you're on a group water scheme, make sure it complies with European drinking water standards. Or if you use a private well, you've got to have that water actively tested for bacteria. And hey, if you are ever unsure, just boil the water before using it for drinking or food prep. Speaking of food prep, always wash your hands before preparing meals and especially after handling raw meat. And crucially, make sure to cook all meat so that it is absolutely no longer pink. Oh, and finally, if you have any furry visitors or you take the kids on a trip to see animals, remember that E. coli thrives in animal guts. Hand washing immediately after any contact with animals or their enclosures is an absolute must. So, as we wrap up and you reflect on these protocols, I want to leave you with this question. Is there a hidden vulnerability in your facility right now? Maybe it's a shared towel, a skipped disinfectant step, or even just a misunderstood 48-hour rule that could be the spark for tomorrow's outbreak. Tighten up those defenses today, because when it comes to the vulnerable children in your care, the very best defense